Welcome to the REHolistic Physio Podcast. Here we are going to try and find out the whys in order to work on the hows. Well, today I have Denise Hopper with me. Hello. We're actually in the same room today for a change.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm normally on a video, like I said to you, I'm on Zoom. Someone on the other side of the world or, quite far away. And luckily, you're in the same room as me today, which is nice. So we are just recording in the same room, which is lovely. So I just wanted to start by telling everyone why I wanted to do a podcast on honey, really, because I've been buying honey off you for quite a few years, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And so we are somewhere in Hampshire at the moment, and I have literally got all my family onto honey.
Good.
And the benefits of honey.
As they should be.
We're going to go through today sort of the benefits of eating honey, maybe sort of skincare. There's all sorts of benefits, aren't there? I can't even sum them up in a sentence, really. So we'll go through some of those because I think it's really interesting. I've learned quite a lot since talking to you, actually. I thought I knew quite a lot, but I don't at all after talking to you. In terms of honey as well, I started using it really as instead of sugar.
Yeah.
So I didn't like the processed ways of, sugar, basically, as we normally buy it. And so I was introduced to actually putting honey in my coffee by a friend. And then, obviously, I started putting in my coffee instead of sugar. And then making cakes, my granola, and I think you can utilise honey in such a way. It's actually quite extraordinary. And people probably don't even know. The full results of that.
The full extent.
Yeah, the full extent.
There are many cookbooks that, honey-based cookbooks, which is brilliant.
Yeah. And I think it's just amazing because I think there are so many ways that you can use it, and also it is healthier. And also it has so many health benefits, as we're going to find out. So Denise, can you tell me a bit about yourself and why you got into bees as well?
Well, when I turned the ripe old age of 50,
it's all that honey.
No, I'm not. I'm older than that now. I've been doing it a while. So my wonderful hubby said, "What do I want for my birthday?" And I said, "I don't know, I fancy doing beekeeping or something like that." And he was gobsmacked, thought, "Where did that come from?" But nevertheless, cut the long story short, he bought me for my birthday a beekeeping day at Hugh Family Whittingstall's River Cottage.
Wow.
So it was fantastic. So I'll explain why a bit later on. It had to be my birthday, sort of October time, but it had to be in February time because of the bee season.
Yep.
So me being naive at the time thought it was actually because we were all fully booked, but no, it was because it's not bee season in the winter. So I went there, did my day, and absolutely loved it. And off the back of that, I joined the local beekeeping association. So when you go on the beekeeping association, you join them thinking, "Oh, great, I know what I'm doing now." But no, they won't let you be a member unless you do your lessons. So you have, I think our local one is 6 theory lessons, and then you get practical lessons after that. So because not everybody wants to then take it up once they've learned about it. And then you get given, if you do take it up, you then get given a mentor for a whole year. So someone else who's beekeeper, all part and parcel of the.
That's amazing, actually, isn't it?
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So you're well looked after in order to look after the bees. And once you've been doing it a year, 2 years, I think after a year, you do your first exam, your bee basic assessment.
I love your bee basic.
It's your bee basic assessment, yes. And then after that, when you've been beekeeping a minimum of 4 years, I think, you can do what's known as your honeybee health assessment, your exam on that one. If you really want to be a right boff, you can then go on and do your bee husbandry and then the masters. You can be a master bee.
I just love it.
And those ones, because they're quite lengthy, you do them in module format. So you do a module at a time, and they do all sorts of things like dissecting bees and looking at the anatomy of a bee and
incredible.
And you they analyze pollen as well. So you actually collect some pollen and analyze it. So by analyzing it, they can see where the bee is harvested honey from and the nectar.
See, does that link then back to buying local honey though?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why if you've got a local beekeeper near you, then yes, see if you can tap them into asking if they could supply you with natural, local honey. Because particularly if you have allergies like asthma, then you know it is brilliant. Hay fever. It is absolutely brilliant for that, purely because if they're eating the honey all year round, it only takes a teaspoon a day all year round, then the honey, you'll get desensitized, if you like, to the nectar and the pollen. And so when you then, you know, when the flowers are out in the spring, you'll be desensitized. So it won't affect you anywhere as much. It's worked with my family.
No, I think I do know there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that have said they've really noticed the effects of putting honey in their sort of teas, coffees, generally just eating on toast, however they have it or consume it. And I think, does it really matter how you consume it? Do you know?
No, it doesn't really matter. What you don't want to do is heat it up too much.
Don't heat it up too much.
Because that denatures the honey.
Yeah, because we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? About some things about processing. And in terms of like the bees, so does it depend? So this year you've got, or this harvest, you've had a lot of honey, haven't you?
I've shed loads of honey. Like 320 odd jars, I think, this time around. Works out to me.
Oh my God. And do you know how much they're going to produce? Do you have a rough idea how, depending on how many bees, or is it just varied depending on the weather, the climate, or is it sort of like that?
Yeah, it's climate, it is weather dependent, it is year on year, depends on what they found to forage on, because you can't, and obviously a bee is a free agent. You are not imprisoning them. It's not because
I was asking you that when we first met. I think about it, like, oh, how do they say? Why do they choose that? Like,
they just choose to stay in the house, in the hive that you've produced, because you've given them. Because you're making sure that's your role as a beekeeper, is to make sure that environment is attractive enough. They want to stay there. But of course, the door is always open. They can fly out when they like. And they have to in order to forage anyway. So they forage literally from probably February, when the bluebells come out, not bluebells, sorry, the snowdrops. Snowdrops come out. When you got snowdrops, crocus, all of those things, then they're starting to forage, because there's no point in them foraging in the winter. There's nothing left to forage on. So they start flying around that time. And so that's why usually I'll do a harvest if they've produced enough come the end of spring, because you get nice spring honey, which is usually quite light and floral.
I've noticed the difference whenever I buy it. There's a slight difference, even though I buy it from you. There'll be a slight difference in the taste. You know,
absolutely, because the bees have not necessarily foraged from the same area. People aren't planting the same things.
Exactly.
And the farmers around here, of course, they are planting different things each time. I remember one year, the farmers, there were shitloads of rapeseed everywhere. And rapeseed honey sets really quickly, and it goes so creamy and so pale. So I hardly had any runny honey that year. It was all set honey, because the bees had gone, wow, rapeseed, this is nice, and they'd obviously foraged on that. So
that's interesting, because there's a lot of people who are allergic to rapeseed, isn't it? The rape, and they say that a lot. Oh, you know, the rape say, oh, I'm allergic. So if they possibly had honey each day. And if it's been harvested from the rape, then would that make a difference? In theory,
they should
not that we know.
No,
we wouldn't know, would we?
But
in theory,
you can't really tell where a bee is harvested from.
No.
Anyway, because
keep little tags on it.
Yeah, quite.
Air tags on it.
You say that. They are scientists. Yeah, all these bee master people. They've actually they can put a little radar.
No.
Drone things.
Could you imagine?
They've got this little radar.
So they can tell where they're harvesting from.
Yeah.
And then do they then, in research, do they use that to try and treat people with different various sorts of...
They tend to use it more for scientific reasons, in as far as they're looking at where the bees foraging and what's happening as we evolve and as our climate is changing, as to what we should be providing. Because obviously bees, we need them on the planet in order for us to survive. So they tend to do it for that, but there's obviously all sorts of reasons why they do research, isn't there? So it could be why. But they also analyse the actual pollen itself. What we can do as beekeepers is we can send them a sample of honey.
Okay.
And they can analyse the honey and determine what pollen and what flowers they forage on. So they can send you back the information. You can then say, oh, this is I don't know, heather honey. This
Yeah.
is, lavender honey.
Yeah.
If you could take, but they would, like I say, bees will go everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's how much percentage. If you call it heather honey, it's got to have a certain percentage
of that in that. Yeah. And when one thing that actually I just thought of then was, I remember seeing on your honey, it says not to be consumed if you're under 12 or your child's under 12 months. Do you know?
No,
I know they say that. I remember when I had the kids, them saying, don't, make sure there's no honey,
Yeah, I think this is, this is only my thoughts on this, but I think it's because it is a natural product coming straight out of the hive. It's not been processed. It's not been made uber safe for young people.
Yeah, so you don't really know what effects it's going to have. I suppose it's like peanut butter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Things like that, and allergies and things.
Everyone's on the really uber cautious side, so they avoid it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can imagine that's one. And then we said all the benefits of honey really are all year round, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
You can just take it consistently,
don't
stop.
You can use it for honey itself. You can use it for anything. You can use it for your skin as well.
Yeah, which we're coming on to actually. Oh gosh, there's so much about. Honestly, I absolutely have a field day when I think about honey and like the products you've got and things. And when we said about, I want to touch on the off the shelf sort of honey and things like that, because we, sometimes what I used to do is, because when I had some from you and then I'd maybe run out, I'd be keeping a little bit because I wanted that for what I wanted it for my teas and coffees. But then I'd buy a brand off the shelf. I've got to be honest, like I'd buy one from a supermarket. Why is it so much more important to buy it?
Naturally.
What's happening to these ones on the shelf, if that makes sense? Like, so it tastes like honey, but
it does. It tastes like honey. It tastes what people think is honey.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't taste like honey, but yes, people do, because that's what they associate as the sweeter.
Yes, it's a lot sweeter.
That's because if you think about a bee, it's going to forage in spring, or it's going to forage from spring through till autumn time. Okay, so you're lucky if you can do a couple of harvests a year.
Yep.
And obviously, when people are bee farming or big manufacturers, they need, because of the demand, they need to be able to supply all year round. Yep. And as you know, in the wintertime, I tend to run out.
Yeah.
Because there's such a demand, but the bees can only supply so much. So in order for them to supply it all year round, they have to blend it. So it's blended honey. And then in order to make the shelf life longer, they then have it heat treated. And that way it's attractive. And yes, it is natural honey, but it's also blended. So it could be blended with other things.
It's been processed more.
Yeah. So
so really better to buy, like I do now. I buy like 6 at Christmas or whatever. When we get closer to that period, I tend to buy like 6 to 8 or something now. It's gone up in numbers now.
People that buy 15 at a time.
Yeah, no, because you do genuinely, like I said to you,
I worry about
running out, and then I don't know what else to do. And then I'm like, I can't have my honey. So yeah, I think that's, and
it's absolutely vital that you're buying natural honey from your local beekeeper, always from your local beekeeper, and they'll always have some around.
I think it's really important that people know, just to find. They're dotted around, because you're part of the association, aren't you? They're dotted around. If we're listening in this country, for instance, it's probably easier for us to say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's dotted around, but I don't know.
All you need to do is go on to, if you're in the UK, look at the British Beekeepers Association, and they'll have a list of all the beekeeping associations within the country, and then you know that the beekeepers are insured, they're following rules and regulations, they're doing it all properly and thoroughly. Yeah, and they're looking after the bees as well, which is what we're interested in as well, aren't we? You just contact then the local association local to you and find a beekeeper near you. Yeah.
That's really good.
Or you drive around and look for someone who's got a sign.
Because actually around here, I think there's a few. Even around here, there's a couple.
Oh, yeah, there's loads actually.
But there are a couple. Yeah. And with regards to, so if people, I know people have been listening from afar. Say, sort of, I've seen a lot of America. I think America have been watching as well. Do they have the same setup out in America?
Yes.
I mean, America's vast, I know, but
I would guess they would. I mean, I don't know for definite,
Yeah.
but I would guess that they would have the same sort of setup. I know that they do have a lot of bee farmers, and and they are very good. I remember one time, it was a few years ago, there's a lot of YouTube clips and things from American bee farmers that are farming and putting their hives in almond fields.
All right.
Yeah, because the farmers themselves say, yeah, please bring your hives here, put them in the middle of our almond fields, and of course the bees will forage, pollinates, and therefore they get a better harvest of. Remember when almond oil was all out in a rage, and almond this and almond that. The drawback was they found out over time that because it was so lucrative, the bees will keep doing this year on year on year. And of course, the almond fields are so vast, a bee, when it flies to forage, can only go a certain radar. And the actual fields were much bigger than that. So the bees were suffering because it was monoculture. So they were literally only managing to forage on one source. It's like us having a variety, you 5 fruit and veg a day, 5 different colours a day, that kind of thing. So they could only forage on one thing because they couldn't fly any further to get to any other source. So over time, the beekeepers couldn't figure out for ages why their colonies were dying and depleting. And it was because of that. So I don't think they do that as much now. But for me personally, obviously it's always a personal choice. I won't take almond milk. I won't do almond oil, that kind of thing, because I'm a bit worried about it. I like bees.
No, you like you. I know you like bees.
I do like my bees.
You love bees. And when we touched on Manuka honey earlier, so we see a lot of Manuka honey in the shops, and I'm sure people, if they find a benefit from it, that's great. We were talking about it's quite expensive, and I have myself debated in the past, should I try it? But you were talking a little bit about Manuka honey.
Yeah.
And
well, Manuka honey comes from the Manuka bush, and the Manuka bush is only in New Zealand. And so the Manuka bush itself cannot actually supply enough nectar and pollen and stuff for the bees to forage on. They're only just able to supply enough and make enough honey for New Zealanders, let alone to sell worldwide. So consequently, when you get Manuka honey, it is important that you kind of read and see how much on the label is actually Manuka. Manuka honey itself, or Manuka, has absolutely, and it's undeniable, really good therapeutic health benefits. But then so is natural raw honey. And with natural raw honey from your local beekeeper, you're getting it natural, 100% pure. If you buy Manuka honey in the shops, the likelihood it's going to be blended with other things and therefore processed, etc., etc. The likelihood. You'd have to be really, really loaded, really, to get pure Manuka. Because that will be through the roof, kind of. Yes, but I mean, everyone kind of says that allegedly natural honey is far more beneficial because it's natural and local.
So we're better, possibly better getting it local.
Definitely.
Rather than buying it off the shelf.
Definitely.
Which is better for everyone.
It certainly is. It's better. Beekeepers, majority of the beekeepers that are sort of around your area, they're hobbyists like myself. Hobbyists, we love looking after the bees. We are, and the byproduct is the fact that they make honey and they make enough for us as well as themselves. Because it's counterproductive for us to take all of their honey because then they won't survive and thrive. Now, what is the point of that? So we have to take the honey off because otherwise they'll keep producing more and more and more, and then the actual queen, because they've filled all the cells with honey, the queen hasn't got enough room to lay eggs. And if she can't lay eggs, they can't grow as a colony, and therefore they'll die. They need to be nice and a thriving colony to go into the winter because they've got a survival winter without going in. It's counterproductive for us to take everything.
I know. I'm obsessed with bees now.
Are you?
Yeah, I really am. Yeah, I'd love to go.
You should do. You should do. Anyone can do it.
It's the thought of having children around the beehive.
Well, yeah, that may worry you. Although they do, and again, British Beekeepers Association are promoting this. There's a lot of kids that actually do bee basic exam.
Really?
Yeah, got a lot of young beekeepers, and they have national. I think they even have international competitions for young beekeepers.
Really?
Yeah. Sort of. I think they're a friend of mine. He used to do the assessments. He was an examiner. And he said he assessed one that was 7 years old once. He assessed one. They work with a slightly smaller hive, obviously, because they're heavy. But yeah, effectively, they've got little kids as well. And a lot of schools, actually, this is what the British Beekeepers Association is promoting. A lot of schools are taking it on as an educational thing. So they can do a whole course within schools on beekeeping.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's fab.
I know, I'm hooked. Now we were talking about, as we did touch on a bit when we chatted before, about beauty products and some other products that you can use. So you said there was, it's quite good. You sometimes on various skin
products and that kind of thing. You can use honey if we're talking about honey, but obviously the hive produces more than just honey.
Exactly. Yeah, this is what
so you could put honey. I had a friend who suffered with a cancer and had treatment, radiotherapy. You would know that. Radiotherapy. And she said with the scarring afterwards, she put her own raw, because she was a beekeeper, put her own raw honey on it, and it healed so much quicker.
I need to look into that now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, her research, what did she leave one area untreated and the other area treated in order to do true research? Who knows? But, she felt that actually it did. So, you've got that. So you've got the honey itself, but then also you can get lots of other beauty products that have other properties or other products that the bees produce. So you've got things like propolis. Yeah, propolis. This is lovely. This is a little bit of propolis. Smell that.
I know. I've got one in my hand. A little bit. It's like a little. How do I describe it for anyone that's listening?
It's like plasticine.
It looks like a little bit of plasticine. It's quite malleable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But it's the smell of it when you warm it in your hand.
Antiseptic,
isn't it? Antiseptic smell.
Yeah.
And it has. You said it's got antibacterial properties.
Yeah, antibacterial and antiseptic kind of properties.
It's amazing. Good, I'm quite addicted actually. So
it's good stuff. But people that make skin products or any other sort of beauty products out of and they say it's bee related, it's usually got some propolis in it, which is brilliant. It is the propolis that does it, as well as honey. You can use honey as well. Propolis is, as we said, it's got so many therapeutic properties itself, antibacterial, antiseptic type of things. And that actually comes from when the bees are foraging on trees and they forage on the sap. And when they bring sap back, they mix it with enzymes in their stomach and things, and they actually use that as polyfiller. Like we would fill up any cracks in the walls, they use propolis as that. So when you actually open the hive, you're having to sort of crack open what they've sealed in order to inspect and make sure they're all healthy. So and sometimes if you don't have the bees, the space between each frame and the space between the top of the frames and the lid, if you don't have it exactly the right size, which is 8 millimeters, then the bees will fill in the gaps with propolis, and therefore actually opening the hive is really hard because it's like it sticks like solid glue. So it can come out when it gets cold. It does go quite brittle.
Is it?
Yeah, but when you warm it up, it smells lovely. It is
addictive. It is addictive, actually. And I think with we said, what did we say about protein and carbohydrate?
Oh, this is when we were talking about what is in your honey. So you have obviously the bees are foraging on flowers, and then pollen is their protein. And nectar is their honey, is their carbohydrates. So we were talking about that's why effectively you can substitute your sugar for honey, because as we know, sugar is a simple carb, isn't it? But if you substitute for honey, it's still a carbohydrate, but it's a better natural natural
Mhm.
carbohydrate.
Okay, well that makes sense why I know
Yeah.
better.
And that's why the bees, that's why the bees forage on both. They like protein
Yeah.
from the pollen
Yeah.
itself. And they pack that. And again, you can see when you extract the honey from the frames, you can see that they've packed pollen in sometimes in the bottom. So they're like little cakes of pollen in the bottom of the thingies. And we were talking about, I remember we were talking about pollen being harvested, because that can be a product as well, can't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't harvest pollen.
Yes.
And there is a reason why I don't harvest pollen, because in order for a bee to go out and fly, they go out and fly, and they have like little pollen baskets on the side of their legs.
Yes.
They're like little planners on
Yeah,
the side
yeah,
of their legs.
yeah.
And so they go out and they're harvesting away, and they're working really hard.
working.
Busy bee. And they're working away, and they come back, and of course they bring it all back in their pollen baskets, and they then hand it over to the next bee, who then packs it in a little packers, and they pack it themselves. Well, if you want to harvest those pollen, little pollen baskets, you need to put a specific entrance restrictor in front of the entrance that is a wide enough gap for the bees to get through, but as they go through, it knocks their pollen baskets off. So they've got a little tray that collects the fallen pollen baskets. So you can actually buy jars of pollen. And they look like tiny little balls. Probably about two millimeters in diameter. And lots of different colours, obviously, because there's lots of different flowers, lots of different pollen. And you can, and top chefs use that as a delicacy to sprinkle on puddings, that kind of thing. I personally don't like it, because I think, oh, that poor bee has just done all that work, come back to the hive, come back effectively with nothing. It's got to go out again. And it's just not fair. And as I say, that's the protein for their young as well as their growing. So it helps them. Yeah, because they feed that to their young.
So if they're collecting it, then they're not giving it. They're not able to give it to their young then.
Exactly. They can't feed the young, the larvae. So they don't thrive, and therefore.
Oh, okay. Controversial, I'm afraid. That's made me a bit sad.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, I won't harvest pollen. I could do. I mean, in the springtime, when the spring flowers are out, the crocus are out, you can see, because you've restricted, if you like, the entrance over the winter so the mice can't get in. And if you're not quick enough to open that entrance, so that they start going mad, going out. You can see them, because there's so many of them coming back. This is just their hordes of pollen are all kind of falling off. But
so if it was at that stage where it's not actually affecting them too much.
No, that's not too bad. You just take the entrance off, and then
you don't really.
But you'd never get enough. You would, if you were doing that, you would never get enough. I mean, they have to be collecting for a long time to get a jar full. And just think,
seems like really poor bees, they're working so hard and they don't. So we'll touch on what did we touch on? Wax for candles and cleaning products, didn't we? And you showed me some stuff over there as well about
beeswax can be used. So you've got different products. Obviously, we talked about honey, we talked about propolis, we've talked about pollen. And the other one is obviously beeswax. So you can get beeswax from the hive. So in order to help the bees stay healthy, you would want to change the frames that they're on every so often, maybe every 2 years, whatever, depending on how healthy they are. So you put them on clean frames so that they can then draw more wax. So what are you going to do with the old wax from the old one? So you can, literally filter that and get all the rubbish or the debris out of it, and then you've got this clear wax, this really good wax. So you can make big candles, beeswax candles.
Obsessed.
Yeah, they are lovely.
All
sorts of things, these candles, but you can also make beeswax wraps.
Yeah.
So beeswax wraps are really good, again, because of wax and the natural sort of antiseptic kind of properties in there, antibacterial properties. They're really good to use instead of things like cling film and so
much better, isn't it? Environmentally friendly, see?
And they're reusable. That's the whole point of it. You've got them, and then you literally can just, because they mould as you warm them up with your hands, you literally just fold your lunchbox or your sandwiches or whatever, take it to work, bring it home, and whatever you do, don't wash them under a hot tap, because you're going to melt the wax. So you literally just wash them under a warm tap, but they really don't need much, and then they're done.
Just
Yeah, and you can reuse them, and if you keep using them and using them, and then you find that they're getting a bit sort of the wax gets a bit cracked on them. All you've got to do is put them in a baking tray, put them in the oven, and they
resell that.
So,
well, anyone listening, we're actually going to do a video. I'm going to pop it on YouTube. We've decided, haven't we, to go through the products because I think it's like, I don't know, mind blown by this.
Are you?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I just think there's so much you can achieve. You know,
there is.
There's so many benefits.
I mean, beeswax you can use for all sorts of things as well, and you can use it for furniture polish as well. You've heard of beeswax polish.
Oh, yeah.
So
I use it on my table.
Yeah. So beeswax polish we can make. That's relatively easy to make. Beeswax wraps and obviously beeswax candles.
I bet people listening would have learned those like I did, because I think it's just amazing.
It is such a fascinating subject. The trouble is, you do become obsessed. I become obsessed. My hubby, I don't know whether he rues the day that he bought me that for Christmas, for my birthday one year, but he's like a beekeeper widow, as it were.
Yeah, you're not golfing, though. He's a beekeeper.
Yeah, he does have a job. He does have a purpose when it comes to my bees because of the supers. They're the boxes that the frames are in that the honey is stored. When I have to lift those off because they're very heavy, because you can imagine a weight of a jar of honey. Now, a jar of honey you might get from the shops is maybe a pound at most, usually sort of 12-ounce jars. Well, I can get out of one super, at the moment, we're looking at sort of like £27 per super of honey in weight, £27 weight of honey per super. Yeah.
That's 2 stone.
Yeah.
Is it 2 stone?
It's quite a lot, isn't it?
Quite a lot.
I tend to work in kilos.
I think it's just under 2 stone. I think something like that.
I'm just going to have to work in kilos.
Oh, don't. Oh, I was looking at the imperial metric thing. I was like, I don't know what I mean.
So lifting that off is quite a. So he always has his uses. He's got his own bee suit. Whenever it comes to, I've got to take the supers off, he'll come and help me to lift them off. Yeah. He says, good leg. He's a good egg. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Denise. I think I always ask people 3 key points to take away from their podcast. Have you got any that spring to mind? I mean, I've got a couple that I've taken away from this, definitely. But have you got anything that you tell people, like something like try and buy local, for instance, and double check your honey?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, that's the top one, isn't it? It's classically the top one. Buy local.
Yeah.
Be open-minded. If the honey looks like it's set, then read the labels, because there are labels on there. And so many customers say that they didn't read the label. Because on the label it says it sets because of the amount of fructose and glucose in it. So the percentage of fructose and glucose within the actual nectar that they harvest on will determine how quickly it sets. So if it does set, all you've got to do is warm it in a little bain-marie of warm water and it goes running again, because it doesn't go off. It's not.
No, it doesn't.
People think, oh, it's set, it's gone off. No, honey doesn't go off. That's the beauty of it. So and that is my top tip: is read the labelling, buy local, and be very critical what you're buying in the shops. Just make sure you read it all.
I agree. I think on this end note, we shall say goodbye to everyone. But I think, as Jessie J once said, it's all about the money. I think it's all about the honey.
It is all about the honey.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking to me. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.